Are you wondering who inspired your favorite comedian? What made him want to laugh? And then, hey, the guy that made him want to laugh, who inspired him? And who inspired the guy before that? Where does it all end? What's the history of comedy? This is Funny Like a Clown podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth. We're exploring the history of comedy here on this show. Episode 107, May 4th, 2021. Today we're going to be going way back there and discussing a legendary comedian, Jack Benny. And the young kids right now are saying, Jack who? Jack Benny. You're about to find out what this guy did for comedy. As always, today's episode is brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. For the spicy, sweet, savory taste of game time, there's only one G Vegas available at www.gvegas.webs.com. And hey, back when Jack Benny was around, Buffalo Sauce wasn't a big thing, but now it's huge, so go grab yourself some. As we said, Jack who? Benjamin Kuliski, who, better known professionally as Jack Benny. He became moderately successful on the vaudeville circuit, playing the violin, evolving into a highly successful radio, television, and film career. Known for his comedic timing, his pauses on jokes where you do a pause and you let the audience figure out the punchline before you even say it. He became a master of that. Expression, which, facial expressions, especially in film, better facial expression can say more than any words that come out of your mouth. And his signature, exasperation, well, it's time for this, well, that's time for that. He became known for the word well. That was his exasperated signature routine. Hey, when you got no answer for anything, say, well, hey, that's the way it is right there. That's your face will say it all. Well, then your face says the rest. Let's see. Start out radio and TV, 1932 to 1974. Did some sitcoms. He's best known for playing a character as a miser who played a violin badly, and claimed to be 39 irregardless how old he was. So when he was in his 40s, he was 39, 50s, he was 39, 60s, he was 39, 70s, he was 39. Became the running joke, and no matter, what age he hit, he was always 39. Take it back to the beginning. At age 6, his parents had him take violin lessons from their neighbor, hoping that he'd go, be a professional violinist someday. Which back then, that was like a required thing. Music was like every kid had to, take part in some sort of, musical thing. You had music class at school you had to take part in. It wasn't a choice thing as it is now. So back then, everybody wanted to see if they had a talent. Their parents wanted their kids to have music because it's such a big part of our history, a big part of who we are. And I guess, he loved playing the violin, but he was he hated the practice part, which, everybody loves the fame. Nobody wants to put in the work. Who was that? Kevin Hart said that everybody wants to be a star, but nobody wants to put in the work, baby. But he loved playing the violin. He hated the practice part of it, and it became where he was more of, I guess you'd say, he didn't really want it to turn into a big thing where he was okay being good at it rather than he really wanted to be great at it. He'd often be dreaming of doing other things rather than doing what he was working on. So I guess he wasn't a great student, but he mastered it enough where he could play it very good, and he could get paid doing it. Started performing on the vaudeville circuit, making $7.50 a week, which I guess today would equal to about $210 a week, which that's not a lot of money to live off of. I mean, it's not bad, I guess. $800 a month, you could live off of that if you had. Doing what you love to do, you never work a day in your life. So if you can get paid as much as a regular job, it's better than bagging groceries, baby. So $210 a week playing a violin on the vaudeville circuit, which back then the vaudeville circuit's kind of like a peep show where the girls, they're dancing around in skimpy outfits, but that was against the law. The only way it could be legal if it was part of a show. So, you'd have a guy playing a violin and saying it's a violin act, and we just have girls as part of the show. So the guys would go see the girls, but they had to have the violinist there to make it legal. And it was tough. It was tough. That was where you see the old cartoons where they're throwing tomatoes at the guy on stage. That's how it started. Like, hey, we want to see the girls. Get out here with your violin or whatever. But they'd really have to work twice as hard to win over the audience to get them away from the girls and actually dig what they were doing. So it was very tough for the performers of the day. But hey, they're making money, right? I mean, the girls are bringing in the money, and you're getting paid to make it legal, so it's working out for everybody. Let's see. One night he was performing in the same theater as the Marx Brothers. He got noticed by the Marx Brothers' mother, who wanted to bring him on tour, but at 17 years old, his parents refused to let him go on tour. But it did start a friendship with the Marx Brothers that lasted a lifetime. So, hey, big opportunity right there, but hey, at 17 years old, his parents weren't letting him go nowhere. Yeah, tough to say. Tough to let your kid go at any age, I guess. Hey, your kid's always your kid, no matter how old they get. And I'm sure at 17 it's tough for a parent to say, yeah, I'll never see you again. Go travel the world playing your violin at 17. You're probably not ready for that yet. In 1917, he joined the Navy, so he took a brief hiatus from the entertainment world. But he did entertain the sailors, on ship and stuff like that. But well, regularly he did pretty good. They listened one night. I guess they weren't in the mood. He got booed like seriously, and it was ruining the show. He didn't know what to do, so out of nowhere he started ad-libbing, which means you just off the top of your head he just started saying funny stuff and playing the violin. That actually won over the crowd, and he became known as a comedic violinist from it, which he gained a reputation for it, and that's what the sailors wanted to see. They didn't want to just see the violin. Now they went from booing him to actually wanting to see the comedy and violin version together because they started laughing so hard. And as we know, laughter is the best medicine. How many times we said that on this show? So from the popularity, once he left the Navy, he formed a one-man show, Comedic to Act. I guess somebody had the same name as him. That was why he eventually changed his name to Jack, which I guess was the typical sailor's name. He was in the Navy, everybody's named Jack, so changed his stage name to Jack. That's how he became Jack Meddy, because I guess the other person who had the same name thought it was gonna hurt their theater draw if they thought they were seeing this guy and it ain't the same guy, so he had to change his name to keep from damaging the other act. And I'm sure Jack actually went on to be a bigger act than that guy, so what the hell's that guy know? But no, I can see that. I mean, if I worked hard to build up my name, then another Dennis Wirth came along and he's making money off of my name, people going to see him thinking it's me and he's sucking, probably ain't doing much good for my act, so I can see where the guy was coming from. But let's see, 1929, Benny Zach got saw by a producer at the Orpheum Theater. Well, his agent set up, I guess, for the producer to come at the Orpheum Theater and kind of check him out, saying, hey, I got a good guy here, can you check him out? Well, I guess the guy checked him out and he loved what he saw, because after that he signed a 5-year contract with MGM. Went on to make a movie, The Hollywood Review, which was okay. After that, he made a movie called Chasing Rainbows, which I guess flopped terribly. And after that, he got released from his contract. So, he had his big shot. Boom, went okay first time. Second one flopped. And hey, we're done with you. That's how quick the business works right there. Okay, you ain't making us money. We ain't trying you again. Get the hell out of here. Returned to Broadway, probably the vaudeville circuit. 1932, after a 4-week nightclub run, he was invited to appear on the then Ed Sullivan radio show, not the famous TV show that we all know and love, but back then Ed was on radio before TV, because this is when TV was becoming a thing. Back then it was radio. Hey, family, they didn't get around the TV at night, they got around the radio. That was the big thing. You didn't want to be on TV. That was some newfangled thing. You wanted to be on radio. That's where everybody was tubing in. That's where you'd become a star. But he was excited to explore the new venue of radio. He's like, wow, being asked to be on radio. So he went on there, did pretty good on there. And I guess he got caught by the Eye of Canada Dry to do a radio commercial, and he told them that he had been on, the Ed Sullivan radio show earlier, and they're a fan of that. They decided they were going to sponsor his own show, the Jack Benny program, started on radio from 1938 to 1948. And this is where he went from being like a mid-level, vaudeville act. He was good on the vaudeville circuit. Now all of a sudden you're on radio, you're a national act, because you're big on Broadway and the people will come to see you. People on vacation, but radio, that gets out to everybody. Now all of a sudden, national audience hitting you. Now you can travel anywhere and people know who you are, rather than being a local thing. You can be big on the local circuit and make a lot of money. When you're a national act, you're no longer limited to your surroundings. Now you can go anywhere and people know who you are. So let's see, 1932 to 48 it was on NBC, 1949 to 55 it was on CBS, It was one of the highest rated radio shows during its run. And as I said, back then, I guess everybody, even today, we got G Vegas sponsoring this podcast. Everybody had a sponsor back then. It was the Canada Dry commercials and whatnot. 1933-34, NBC aired the Chevrolet program where he was on. And I guess GM wanted a musical act instead of a comedic act, so he moved it over to CBS, which aired 1949 till May 22nd, 1955 was the last show. But then what everybody dreams of, 56 to 58, they ran reruns, which if you can get paid for while you do your work, that's great. But when you can get paid a second time for work you've already done, that's every entertainer's dream, just to sit home and get paid for work you've already done. Residuals, baby. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about residuals. I guess then became the big switch to TV. It was the newfangled thing. Everybody's trying it out, and one thing leads to another. 1949, LA's KTTV, which was a CBS affiliate, they had him on, and I'm telling you, too much dust in the studio. Don't ever have a dusty studio for podcast. Someday I'm going to dust in here when I'm not so busy. Let's see. As I said, 1949, LA's Los Angeles KTTV CBS affiliate aired a television version of the Jack Benny radio program, and it was actually a pretty good hit. Initially, it was only supposed to be 5 specials, and it ended up going every week from 1950 to 65, seen weekly. That's how big of a hit it became. And geez, I remember that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? They put that on. It was supposed to be once a week, and it became such a frickin' hit that they had it on every night of the week because people were dying to tune in to see it. There's the demand. You're going to give the demand, and once they put it on every night of the week, it was a huge hit for a while. It ended up blowing itself out. It's like you can only have too much of a good thing till it blows itself out. Well, the Jack Benny TV show, it went from 5 special running for over 15 years there. So that's how did it. But even when he did the TV show, he didn't give up his radio show. He continued to do that at the same time, which I guess, that's what makes you. You don't want to give it up. I mean, I'm doing a movie right now. The world needs a new superhero, but I ain't giving up the podcast because this is my home base, baby. And I guess radio was his home base. And I guess you can never have too much of a good thing. As we just said, he's got radio, he's got TV, he's doing what he loves to do. Why are you giving up everything? 1954, Benny co-hosted General Foods' 25th anniversary show, A Salute to Rogers and Hammerstein, with Groucho Marx. Now, if you don't know Groucho Marx, we got to do a podcast on him because he was the godfather of radio, okay? Before they say, well, Milton Berle, he was the original Mr. Television. Well, Groucho Marx, he was the original Howard Stern of frickin' radio. He was the guy if you wanted on radio. So I guess he co-hosted it with Groucho Marx and Mary Martin at the time. Let's see, which led to 1954 CBS. They premiered Chrysler's Shower of the Stars, which was hosted by Jack Benny and William Higdon. Hiddigan. I don't mean to chop his name up, but hey, pronunciation. It's all in the pronunciation. Well, as you know, hey, what am I going to do? Well, as Jack would say, well. He did that until 1958, so 54 to 58, and I guess, in the time of TV, this was all new, and I guess Jack Benny, he required a live audience, which wasn't a thing they were doing at the time. Other one we used laugh tracks, where, you'd tell a joke and then they'd dub in later, people laughing later as a track that they used, and not many TV shows were doing live audience, where they said because of his timing and his need, and that was what made the show good, because he relied on the audience for his timing, and if they're not there, you can't make that stuff up. The only way you can do that is live. So they're putting the live feeling of a live show inside of a TV studio is what they're doing. And I remember Happy Days did that. It had a rebirth. It was like Happy Days was the biggest show, then it started to go old, and then when they started to put a live studio audience in, it had a rebirth because it was a whole new thing they were doing. They were playing off the audience now, which made it a better show again. The show relied heavily on guest stars, or, this is an important one. His TV show, it relied heavily on guest stars, where, hey, the guest star of the week, this is why you tune in, whereas radio show, They was relied on the regulars. It was the regulars on radio that would make the show work, like the Howard Stern show. You turned in to hear him. You tuned in to hear Robin. You heard in to hear Jackie the Joke Man or Artie Lang or whoever the guy was. The stars were great, but it was the regulars that made that radio show work. Where on TV, the late night circuit, the Johnny Carson. Well, Johnny was great, legend in his own right. You tuned in for the star. I remember a lot of people that used to say, who do you turn? Do you turn in the Jay Leno show, the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, or do you tune in the Late Show with David Letterman? And most people would say it depends on the guest. Who they have on. That's who I'm interested in. They're both legends, so you're good. It's just who you're interested in seeing that week. So there's the difference between radio and TV right there. I thought that was a huge difference that we had to discuss. I guess as a gag, in 1957, he appeared on the then popular $64,000 question, which was kind of like the Jeopardy of its time, the game show. I guess he chose the category violin, which with his violin background, he probably could have nailed any answer they had. But as a joke, I guess he answered the first question right, then he opted out, and he left with $64. It says $64,000, so that was the joke where, he probably could have went on and won the whole thing, but he opted out as a joke. I guess, he got so big at the time and he was such a loved host of his TV show. He was attracting guests that rarely ever did TV. Most people didn't want to do TV at the time. It's not like today. It was kind of a bother or it wasn't their thing. Marilyn Monroe, he had her as a guest. Humphrey Bogart, one of the big movie actors at the time. And then probably the biggest one, 1964, Walt frickin' Disney himself was a guest on there to promote the Mary Poppins movie. And you got Walt frickin' Disney on your show. Okay, you don't get any bigger than that, baby. That was the biggest thing at the time. Let's see. I guess in 1964, CBS pulled the show, saying it lacked the appeal of the younger audience. I guess he was getting to the age there. He didn't appeal to a younger audience. The older people loved him, but the newer kids tuning in TV. And it was the same thing with Jay Leno. He said that was one of the reasons that he left the Tonight Show. It was, he was getting to the age, he said, where, you're in your 60s and 70s, you shouldn't have to know the latest rap song, every rap song that Jay-Z is singing, okay? Because it's not really your world, but, being a guest of the show, he has to know that information, even though he could probably care less. And he said he'd have on some supermodel, and there he is, some old man. He said he's looking like a pervert. So, you have your run on anything, when it's time to leave. And I guess he got to the age where, they started to pull. I mean, hey, any great sports athlete, you only have your run for so long. Any business, you can be at the top of your game. At some point, your run's going to come to an end. There's few who get the privilege of doing it till the day they die. And I guess later on in a book about his memoirs, his daughter put out, his daughter said that the ratings game was really getting the jack, which I can understand because entertainment itself is a game, It's like it gets to the point you got to be in a certain circle in comedy. If you're in that circle, you can't be in another circle because it's a competition. And if you work for this one, you can't work for that one. And this one's competitor. If you do my room, you can't work his room. It does, It gets irritating after a while. I was working with a guy and he could book whoever he wanted and forgot about me. That was okay. But if I didn't book him on every single show I had, I'd never hear from the guy again. So. Ended up I never heard from the guy again because I started booking other people other than just him. I should have booked just him, but he could book whoever he wanted apparently. But that's the game, and you play it for a while because that's part of the business. I did an old television show, The Comedy Kitchen, and the standard question I'd ask every big comedian who came on because I thought it was so important. It's like, what advice would you have to the young comics? And I got so many answers I thought was interesting, but I had Jackie the Joke Man from the Howard Stern Show on, and he gave me the best answer ever. He told me this. He's like, if a kid asks me, what do I got to do to make it in comedy? I'm going to tell him, don't even try. It's a dirty business. Quit. That's what I'm going to tell him. He said, the truth of the matter is, I don't want you to quit. But if me telling you to quit is going to slow you down one bit, you ain't got what it takes to make it in this business, man. Okay? It's a dirty, hard business, and if you choose to be in it, then you better be ready to accept that. And Jack, he accepted the ratings game for a while. That's the game you got to play. Who's in top place? Who's second? What do you got to do to get back on top? But it'll eat away at you, and after a while, you just don't care anymore. You get sick of the game. It's like anything else. You don't want to play it anymore. So, it's like we said about the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It's a great thing for a while. Then after a while, I don't care how big it is, you get sick of it. So he briefly went back to NBC, but again, the younger generation wasn't tuning him in. He was outrated by Gomer Pyle. Remember the old Gomer Pyle show? Well, Gomer Pyle's the guy who eventually took Jack Benny out of TV, man. That was it for him. So, what a legendary career, though. But he went on in 1954. Benny co-hosted, a bunch of specials. You know, he'd occasionally do specials, and they lasted into the 1970s. The last performed in 1974. So, I mean, what a legendary run on television. You know, you're bringing out the biggest names of the time. You're doing something right. He did have a lucrative film career. Had its ups and downs, nothing major, but if you're surviving that business, you're doing very good. Okay, that's what they always said about Joan Rivers. You know, she was a legendary woman at the end of her career, but she never did nothing huge. But nothing she ever did bombed either. She stayed right in the middle, and she had a long career staying right in the middle. She was a survivor, and this guy survived in the film industry. The Academy Award winning, the Hollywood relief of 1929, Broadway Melody 1936, George Washington Slept Here 1942, 1941 Charlie's Aunt, 1942 To Be or Not to Be. I don't know if that was the movie that led to the question, and you know, to be or not to be, that is the question, or if he was making a movie about that, to be or not to be, that was the question. Well, who knows, as Jack would say. Well, we'll never figure that one out. 1933, he was in Ed Sullivan's Mr. Broadway. 1940, Buck Benny Rides Again. The Horn Blows at Midnight, which is actually a joke that was a running gag on his radio show, because I guess he was in a movie where the car wouldn't work or something, and the failure of the car became like this running joke on the radio show that lasted for years. They always went back to that. It's like the Out for Anything. That's the running, the car not running situation. Later work, you get old in your career, you do the occasional things. You're not doing it full time, but you do the occasional spots. 1939, Daffy Duck and the Dinosaur. He was in that. I Love to Sing. Slap Happy Pappy and Goofy Groceries. So he was still doing some animated work in the animated world. So he kept in the game, and even at an old age, it's good to keep in the game. And people watch you. I know Bob Newhart. I mean, he's one of the oldest actors, and he was on The Big Bang Theory. You get to play, but just to be able to touch a legend like that, have him guest star on your TV show, it's such an honor to pay tribute to somebody like that. Dick Van Dyke on the late night circuit, just to have a legend like that on. It's like, you just want to have him on just to pay tribute. 1940s, he did a movie on Malibu Beach Party. 1959, The Mouse That Jack Built. Benny Made a Chameleon. It's a mad. Not Benny Made a Chameleon. Benny made a cameo in It's a Mad World, which was an honor. Now here's the trivia one. Okay, now it's rumored. It's never been proven, but it's been rumored that Jack Benny actually did a cameo in the all-time classic, and this is one of the top 5 movies of all time, it was voted, Casablanca, which was never confirmed. Okay, I guess there's a guy in there that did a cameo, and I guess it kind of looks like him, and they weren't sure if it was him. Is that Jackman? We're not sure. But it was never confirmed or denied whether it was him. And Roger Ebert, one of the great movie critics of all time, he said, hey, it looks like him. He didn't know either, so I guess that was the running joke where they'd never confirm if he was in Casablanca or not. But if he wasn't, there's a guy who looks just like him in there, so who knows if he was actually in there or not. But, hey, radio, TV, the vaudeville circuit, the violin, music. September 22nd, 1974, he died at the age of 80 years old in his home of pancreatic cancer. How big was this guy at the time? Well, he started out a little nobody on the vaudeville circuit at the time of his death. He was in a coma for, I guess, a week or so before his death. While he was in a coma, he was visited by then stars George Burns, Bob Hope, Frank Sinatra, Johnny Carson, John Rowells, and then Governor Ronald Reagan, who, as we know, went on to become president. So there's the respect of the peers he had right there. You recognize any names on that list? That's who was paying tribute to this guy, man. So that shows you how big he was. And I guess we can end off the show on this statement. This is what he had to say about himself. He said, everything that's happened to me happened by accident. I never had a clear-cut goal. I never knew exactly where I was going. I guess one thing, that's how it is. in comedy. One thing leads to another. You never know what's going. That leads to another. It's a fun ride, and you never know where you're going to end up. I said, I took a little class on comedy. I'd always wanted to try it as a kid. I figured, yeah, all right, I'll take the class. Say, look back, haha, I tried comedy, and one thing led to another. It started to take off. I said, well, if I put some effort in, I wonder what had happened. It took off some more. And hey, I'm having fun now. This is Funny Like Clown Podcast. I hope you're having fun with me. I'm Dennis Wirth, your host, and what a tribute, because the guys like, the Bill Burrs and the Louis C.K.'s and the Jerry Seinfelds and the Dave Chappelle's of today, they couldn't do what they did if, the Roseanne Barrs and the Louis C.K.'s and the Sam Kinnisons and the Andrew Dice Clays and, did it before them, and they couldn't have did it if the Richard Pryors and the George Carlins and the Rodney Dangerfields didn't do it, and they couldn't have did it if the Lucille Balls and the Bob Hopes and the Groucho Marx didn't do it, and hey, Jack Benny, he was right in that mix, and to be in that mix leaves you a legendary career. Laughter is the best medicine, folks. You want to laugh? Know the history of comedy. If you want to be a great comedian, you don't have to be, a comedian on stage. You can be the comedian at work. Go tell somebody a joke at work, make them laugh, and you'll remember it as the funny guy at work. And it's great to be remembered as the funny guy rather than be remembered as the asshole at work, because nobody wants to remember an asshole, but everybody wants to remember the funny guy. And hopefully I'm the funny guy, Dennis Wirth, Funny Like Clown Podcast. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tune in. We're putting this thing through the roof. Good night, folks.